Welcome to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. Our goal is to help you maximize your church's potential. You'll hear from top leaders in children's, student, and family ministry about the principles and practices they use. Now here's your host, Nick Blevins.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 52 of the podcast. Can you believe it? 52 episodes, 1 year of the podcast. Maybe it's the first one you're listening to. Maybe you've listened to all of them. Either way, I think it's pretty amazing that we've hit 1 year. We've had so many great guests, and today's guest is no different. It's Jeff Henderson, and Jeff and I talk about something new he's working on with some other folks called Champion Tribes. They want to help busy dads connect with their sons, which is just an amazing mission. I think it's something that's very needed. And so we talk about what that is. It's launching here now, and it's something that's going to be available for dads to do with their sons. And I think as church leaders, it's helpful for us too, because we can pass this on to fathers in our church. I couldn't get Jeff on the podcast, of course, and not ask some other questions as well. So at the end, we talk a little bit of ministry and leadership and stuff like that. But before we jump into that interview, to celebrate 1 year of the podcast and just how amazing you all have been as listeners who've commented and shared and listened and been guests on the podcast and all that, we're giving a bunch of stuff away next week. So next week, starting Monday, every day next week, we're going to give stuff away. So if you follow the blog, if you listen to the podcast, if you subscribe to the email list, if you connect on social media, any of those things, we're going to give stuff away every day. So don't miss that. We're going to have a lot of fun just giving out free stuff, some gift cards to stores and some great resources that'll help you as leaders and leaders in family ministry and all that. So be sure to check all that out next week. We're also going to do that Q&A podcast. We're going to take some of the questions you've submitted over the last year for the podcast, particularly ones that we haven't hit specifically. And then I'm going to try to answer them as best I can, at least how it works at our church, how it doesn't work at our church, how we're struggling with that, and maybe even from things I've seen, what I've seen other leaders do. So we're going to do that next week, have that special episode, and then we'll kind of kick off another season of the podcast, so to speak, by having Kenny and Elle Campbell back on. They were the first and third guests of the podcast when we launched this thing, which is great. So we're going to have them back on and just get an update, talk about what they're up to, how they're helping youth workers and all that. So you don't want to miss any of that stuff. That's all coming. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of it. But I know what you want right now, and that's to listen to Jeff Henderson. And I really enjoyed my time with Jeff. Anybody that knows Jeff knows he's just humble, sincere, completely genuine, just a great leader. And so I enjoyed talking with Jeff before and after when we recorded, but certainly this conversation as well, as we talked about Champion Tribes and some leadership principles in ministry. Well, I'm here at Gwinnett Church with Jeff Henderson. Jeff, welcome to the podcast.
Nick, I'm honored, man. Thanks for coming to Atlanta, and I know you're at the Orange Conference, so it's great to see you.
Yeah, and I got around there despite roads falling apart. Unfortunately, we got there. Actually, for us, it was midday. We got there in normal time.
Well, I'm a lifelong Atlantan, so I apologize. I don't know. We don't really know what's happening. So.
Yeah, well, it's worth it. The Orange Conference is great. Gwinnett Church here, this facility that you have is amazing.
This is your second time here, is that right?
It is my second time here. We did a tour. Back. Thank you. We did a tour last year, and I was telling you before we were recording that between Connexus Church with Carrie and Gwinnett Church here, the facility, these are the two of the best designed facilities in terms of like your church strategy and vision matching the facility or coming out of the facility, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. So good job there.
Well, thank you. Our team did an amazing job, and so it's hard to believe we've been in here 2 years now.
Yeah, I guess so. As soon as it went up, I was like, okay, when can I tour it? And the Orange Conference last year was like the first opportunity, so that was really cool. But we're going to talk about something that you've been working on with some other people called Champion Tribes. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a great thing. I think it's a much needed thing. So tell us about what Champion Tribes is. What's the story behind it?
Well, thanks for asking. It really is for fathers and sons, particularly fathers that have sons between the ages of 11 and 14. It's a really critical time. In fact, Reggie Joyner with Orange talks about that middle school really is a critical time now, and it always has been. But, we make fun of it, talking about Axe deodorant and all that. But middle school, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, Reggie calls it the firsts. The first time kids are exposed to porn. There's a lot of first things that they're experiencing. It's a really critical time. So So from a parenting standpoint, it's a really massive opportunity to be able to invest in the life of your child. So to give you a real quick backstory, my friend David Salyers, David is the vice president of marketing for Chick-fil-A, a little chicken company that's doing fairly well.
Little chicken company,
and so I worked at Chick-fil-A, worked with David for a number of years. So about 10 years ago, he called me and said, hey, I went to a bar mitzvah of a friend of mine, and it was amazing. And I drove away thinking, I have not even thought about doing anything like a rite of passage for my son when he turns from 12 to 13. And he goes, I want to do it. And so I looked around. I didn't really find like how to do it. There were a lot of great books about it, but I needed like, how do I do this?
Yeah.
And he said, I really didn't find anything, so I just made it up. He said, so I've invited 5 dads and 5 other sons who are 12 years old, and we're bringing in different speakers. Would you be a speaker? So I came over one night to his house and was a speaker and spoke to the boys and the dads. And it was amazing. And so I pulled David aside and said, hey, my son's like 10. Yeah. When your youngest is, they're your age, can we do this together? And he said, absolutely. So when my son turned 12, we did this as well. And it was phenomenal. One of the best things I've ever done as a parent. Now, it lasted about 12 to 18 months. That's just because we wanted it to. Mm-hmm. But at the end of teaching our boys what it's like to be a champion in life from our perspective and from God's perspective, we had a blessing ceremony. And we invited all of our families, and they would we would stand up. And Cole, my son, for example, would stand up and share with all the families, here's what I've learned of what it's like to be a champion in life over the last 12 to 18 months. And then I got up and read a letter to Cole saying, this is what I believe in you. And I specifically gave him a blessing, and we gave him a sword. All right. So,
which is great. Yeah. For sons.
And no one got hurt. These were like William Wallace swords. I'm not making, they were that's taller than the boys. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Oh, that's great.
911 will be called soon. So
that would be a funny story too. Yeah. Look, I promise we weren't doing like battles or gladiator stuff. It's the blessing son.
Yeah. So anyway, I tried to explain that to a judge. So fortunately, no one got hurt.
Yeah.
And it was an amazing experience. And I just thought, well, that's cool. That's awesome. But occasionally, as I was telling you earlier, I would put something out on Instagram, hanging out with the Champion Tribes tonight. And I would get this wave of feedback from dads going, hey, what is this? I want to do this. I don't know how to do it. I'm too busy, but is there a book? And so I just kept hearing this, and David got the same thing. And then finally we just said, you know what? We should provide an opportunity for other dads to do this. But dads are busy, because when you have a boy or a daughter too that's between 11 or 14, that's also a prime earning years for a dad. So typically they're busy as well.
True. Yeah.
So it's a very critical time in the life of a son's life, but it's a critical time in terms of income earning years for a parent. So anyway, long story short, we created Champion Tribes, and this has been like a year-long journey. And basically, it's 12 sessions. And if you've got, the way we say it is, anytime a 12-year-old has a birthday party, this would be a great gift for them, because it's a gift not only for him, but it's for his dad as well. And you need 5 or 8 other dads and 5 or 8 other sons that are between the ages of 11 and 14. And you go on a, multi-month journey together. It could be 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, however you want to do it. But you just download our digital platform. It's an app platform, and you have 13 sessions, and we just walk you through it. And it's basically like small group curriculum on a screen.
Yeah.
And there's a game you play. There's a movie clip. There's some questions that you process. There's some teaching about here's what confidence looks like. Here's what humility looks like. We talk about when you get your first phone, here's how to leverage that
that's good.
Powerful technology, which can be good or bad. And all of these lessons, but ultimately it results in a final blessing. And there's gifts along the way. The boys get a Champion Tribes treasure chest, which is here, and they get a ring, they get this is what we call a gold medal, they get a journal, they get all this stuff that they get, and as the dads give them to reinforce the lessons that they're learning. But we think this is going to be a family heirloom. We think that Cole, for example, my son, if he has a son, he'll give this to him and go through it as well. So our goal is to help busy fathers bless their sons. So the hero of all this is the dads, and they want to bless the sons, and we just want to be a guide through using these resources. So long story short, we didn't want to keep this idea to ourselves. Yeah. And this isn't a new idea. I think it's a resurfacing idea.
Sure. And you package it up and provide a lot of the content too. Like you're right here in front of us, we have kind of the kit. Yep. Which looks great.
Yep. Well, I want a dad who's incredibly busy, who travels a lot, to look at Champion Tribes and goes, oh, I can do that. It's already done. Most of it's already done for me.
Yeah.
And this isn't a book. It's an experience. And so, in fact, some of the sessions we actually teach the dads, okay, tonight you're not actually staying in a room, you're going out somewhere. So one of the sessions is about motivation. What is your motivation in life? So they all pack up or get their kits and they all go to a cemetery. And they walk around and they just look at headstones. And they go find their favorite saying on a headstone. And they gather back together and they get their Champion Tribes journal out and say, okay, here's what we want you to do. What do you want people to say about you when your life story is written? And so the boys actually write out, in just a paragraph or two. Here's what, and then they read it. Okay. So we've had some Champion Tribes test groups going on right now in Alabama, South Carolina, and Georgia. And it's been so fun to hear the boys, what they want said to them about their life at 12 years old. So imagine writing this down at 12, putting it in this treasure chest, and then reading it a year or 7 or 70 years from now. So, so those kind of experiences are kind of baked into this. And so that's why we think we're so excited, because you never know what's going to happen in these experiences.
Mm-hmm. And you want, like you talked about, you should do it with other people, with other dads, with other sons. It's not designed to be done alone.
No, and I mean, you can do that, but the dynamic that we experienced is that we would go through, a session together, and then we would all go out to have pizza together, and the boys would sit over here and the dads would sit over here, and the boys just loved that made the dynamic of the boys, and then the other dads pouring into the sons to have, like Jeremy, who was one of our dads, say, Cole, I believe in you. I know your dad believes in you, but I believe in you too. That's massive when other men can speak in. Another adult voice speaks into the life of a son. So the dynamic of a tribe is really important. That's hence the name Champion Tribes.
Yeah. That's great. How about, I know this question will come up. At our church, we've done like a father-daughter event, and we do it with the mindset of like, Dad, you could go replicate this. So we haven't done actually a dance as that event. We've done something you could really go do somewhere else if you just make the time. But the question will come up all the time, what about mothers and daughters?
Right.
So I'm sure that's come up. So what's your thought there?
Well, it's interesting. So my wife and daughter actually did this before I did this with Cole.
Okay.
So they
stole their idea.
That's right. So they were together with other 12-year-old girls, moms, and then they had a mentor, Lauren Espy, who's on our staff here. And she's actually the one responsible for a lot of the design of the building, just so you know.
That's
and
great.
So Lauren met with these girls for a year. And so our hope, Nick, is that if this works, then we would transition to mother-daughters. That's the next step on this.
That's great.
So we got to make sure this one works first. So, and what we've done is we've ordered 10,000 of these. So that's about as much as we can afford at this point. Okay. So with that, now the digital content, that's kind of limitless. But so that's our plan. So right now, what's happening is we'll launch this hopefully before Father's Day. And then in the fall, we're hoping to launch Mother-Daughter.
Oh, okay. So that would be really quick.
That's Don't have quite a name for that quite yet.
So. Yeah. So this will be launched here soon. We're recording in April while we're at the Orange Conference. It's going to be in the next few weeks or a month?
Our hope is June 1st. Okay, so June 1st. We think this is a pretty good Father's Day gift idea. Like if you're a grandparent and you want to give your son a Father's Day gift or whatever, we feel like this isn't just a gift for him. It's a gift for your grandson. Or we encourage wives to buy this. I know there's probably a little bit of tension to a wife giving, hey, you need to do this.
Yeah.
So I think what we would coach wives on would be, this is an opportunity for you to encourage your husband to go, you're a great dad. You're an awesome dad. In fact, when I saw this, I thought of, this is the kind of stuff that you would want to do with our son. So our hope is to launch it Father's Day. And we've partnered. You're familiar with Kaz McCaslin with Upward Sports, and so Kaz is helping us distribute this. So and when people order this, they'll get it in 2 or 3 days and can go with it.
That's great. Mm-hmm. So what about for boys where dad's not around?
Mm-hmm. So that's something we stumbled into. So in one of our test groups, in fact, Kaz's office, there was a single mom who had heard about this. The dad just walked away and left. So she's got a son who's 13. And so she approached Kaz and said, hey, I've heard about Champion Tribes. Do you think you could go through this as a mentor with my son? And so we hadn't even thought about that. And Kaz said, That's a great idea. So that's what they've been doing. So there's actually the opening night of this is kind of mysterious. It's the only thing I can kind of relate it to is like a fraternity initiation, you know. So there's like all the dads are in black shirts, and we teach the dads all to do this. So they just go on the digital platform, and we'll say, here's everything you need to know about opening night. So the boys come in, they're blindfolded, they don't know. There's this fog thing. There's smoke, and we teach them all how to do this. And there's a contract that they sign. And basically the commitment is, I'm going to go through this all the way to the end. And so we're trying to teach the boys commitment. So in this commitment letter, it says father, son, father, son. So what Kaz did is he said, hey, I want to make sure that you know I'm not taking the place of your father. I'm your mentor. So Kaz just scratched out mentor in the place of father. And in son, he put mentee. And so they signed it. And so they've been through this, almost done with their test group. And so the other day, the mom called Kaz and said, what are y'all doing in these sessions? He's taking out the trash. I don't have to ask him. He's opening my car door. He's getting up early and doing his devotion. What are y'all feeding him on these nights? You know? Yeah. And so Kaz has been saying and what's interesting about Kaz, Nick, is he has 4 daughters. He's never had a son. Okay. So this is about as close as he'll get, you know, to having a son. And so we thought, good grief, we should have thought of this, but we didn't. But now that we know this idea. So what we're going to ultimately do is print these commitment contracts and print them with mentor or mentee. Sure. The cool thing about this contract, though, is we actually have, the old ways where they would wax and have a stamp and you would sign it. So there's a stamp that comes in a kit. There's this wax and we actually give you a candle. So all of this, you don't have to go out and really get anything.
Which is key for dads.
Right.
At least
so
I
got
think
the candle. Now you do need maybe a lighter. We don't provide a lighter. But you light the candle, you drip the wax, you stamp the Champion Tribes stamp, and then you sign it, and then you put it in your Champion Tribes treasure chest. So, long answer to your great question, but we think mentor mentee for single parents is going to be a big thing that we weren't really expecting. But that's the wonderful thing. I mean, you're a launcher. You have an entrepreneurial spirit about you as well. That's the great thing when you launch stuff like this. There are ideas that come about that you weren't even thinking about.
Sure, yeah, and just make it better. And in that case, you didn't even have to change anything. You just a couple words in the contract. Yeah. And I would imagine because what I want to ask about now is how churches can get involved. Mm-hmm. But if I'm thinking about it in our church, and if I know, obviously we have families where dad isn't around, you could pick out someone like Kaz, who maybe it's somebody who's an empty nester now, maybe it's somebody who only has daughters, maybe somebody who doesn't have kids in a way. So, yeah, you could probably, and that would be, I would imagine for them, just for Kaz, for example, just powerful.
Oh, yeah. He's loving it. I mean, he's dreading when it's over.
Yeah. Who's the next?
Yeah. But, for churches, for small group leaders or Sunday school volunteers or whatever, this would be perfect. So if you've got someone that you're investing in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, I think you do want to say, hey, I'm not your dad. I'm not trying to take the place of your dad. You can still go through this and still at the end say, hey, I want to, as your mentor, I want to speak in words of wisdom to you. And we've all had that. It's a coach. Mm-hmm. It's a teacher. And the other thing, the way we position this is that, we invest a lot of dollars in sports and coaching and all that, which I think is awesome. It's awesome, right? So my kids play sports. It's awesome. I play sports. But more often than not, the sports will come to an end probably sooner than people think, in terms of a professional aspect. Yeah. Well, this, we think, is just coaching for life. Mm-hmm. So think of it as the game of life. And we're trying to teach you how to be a champion in the game of life in all aspects. One of the aspects we teach the boys is finances. Give first, save second, live on the rest. And one experience we give them is we challenge the dads to give them $5 or $10 and to go out one night and just give money away. Huh. And then come back together over pizza and discuss, hey, what did you do? What was that experience like? And who did you give the money to? So we want them to see, it's okay to be a champion in baseball or music or anything like that, but the most important thing is to be a champion in life. And this is what this goes after. So it's kind of like champions for life without any footballs or basketballs. That's important because not every kid loves that stuff either, but absolutely. It wouldn't matter here. Yeah. What about for churches? I mean, most of the people listening are church leaders, and I'm sure some of them are parents, so they're thinking about it personally, but they're also thinking about their church. How do I, help parents in my church use this? Well, we're still exploring that, but I would tell you there's 2 pain points of a parent's life. The pain point's probably not a great I would say maybe stress points.
The first it's probably accurate.
The first stress/pain point would be when you come home from the hospital and you've got a newborn and you don't sleep and all that kind of stuff. And you're like, at least for me, I just felt this overwhelming sense of responsibility. Oh no, what do I do now? Right. And then the second stress point is when your son or daughter starts heading toward the teenage years. And there's a little bit of an attitude. You're not the hero necessarily anymore. They're getting their first phone. The whole world is exploding to them. That's when most kids are exposed to some type of pornography, drugs, all this kind of stuff. And that's when parents go, oh, I got to do something. I got to do something. The reason I say that is if I'm a student pastor working youth ministry, that's something to pay attention to, because at that point they're very open to, oh, the church can provide something for me to help me. I'm in. Yeah. That's why when people come home from the hospital and they kind of find their legs for a while in terms of, okay, now we're sleeping a little bit, and now they go, okay, I got to get God in these kids, So you just kind of take them to church and go do something, whatever that is that y'all do. Yeah. Is it a class or whatever? Just do this because I want to make sure my kids are good with God. Okay. So that's an important stress point. The second stress point, I think, is, as I mentioned, just these 12, 13, 14-year-old, that's such a pivotal moment. So I think a church reaching out to the community that's saying, hey, we want to have a rite of passage for your son or your daughter. All of this would be done for you. So, obviously we're trying to launch mother-daughters, but let's just stay with father-sons. I think you could have a father-son rite of passage night. Mm-hmm. And now you could get this whole kit and the digital platform as a church and just take it and just run with it yourself. I think what would be even better is if mentors or parents could actually do this and they provide the kit. So I don't think the church necessarily would provide an individual kit for all of them. Sure. But you could do that. The church could get this and just show the videos and then try to do a format of this. But even if you don't do champion tribes, just take that out of the mix for a moment. I think it's important for a church to have some type of rite of passage journey for parents, whether it's getting some, s'mores and a fire and just doing the letters. I just think it's a way to tell the community, hey, we want to do this for you. But one night is good, but a journey over a few months is even better because you're really leading up to that one night. Yeah. And so that's what we've experienced is that blessing, that final blessing was so much richer because we'd been on a journey together. Yeah. And we actually did this video that just clips of pictures. And so the boys, and it was so fun that you would see opening night, and then you would see the last time that we got together, and you could literally see the boys growing up. I mean, it was just because they were little, they were 12 over here. Now they're 13, and it's even in that year, it's a big difference. And the boys were looking, wow, look how tall I am. I'm growing. So it's just a fun time in their life to kind of see that.
And it'd be pretty easy for a church to kind of facilitate the groups happening, and then all the dads are getting the stuff themselves, and at that point you're really just helping them get to it. I mean, everything else is already done.
But it's a fantastic entry point, and I would do this on a Friday night, Saturday night, so it's not a Sunday, but it's a fantastic entry point. Yeah. Into and again, a lot of churches use sports as an entry point for people. I think this is an entry point in another format.
Yeah, we have definitely found in our church, like we'll say the transition points for kids. So having a baby, going into kindergarten, 6th grade, that is when parents do pay attention the most. Mm-hmm. But it's probably true that we've done a better job with some of those other ones than this season of life, 12, 13. And like you said, it could be the most important. Yeah. And there's not as much out there. I don't think there's as many things that churches are doing at this stage. And even parents sometimes are leaning away because it is harder. And like you were saying, like you're not the hero anymore. There's more fights. And all of a sudden they're not leaning in as much either.
And not only that, you're just in a prime earning years again. You're, you're probably traveling, you're maybe launching a business, or there's just the career aspect. Then you got the marriage aspect and all of that. And so I think this could be something that churches could certainly do. In fact, we're talking to Orange right now, and it's probably going to be a 2018 thing in terms of trying to launch this in some form or fashion with churches. But whether you use Champion Tribes or not, I do think this is a pivotal time. It's a great opportunity for middle school ministry. But if I'm a busy middle school pastor, and this is already created for me, you can just
why not
get this.
How would they do that? So I know it's launching here in June.
They just go to championtribes.com and they can go there. They can purchase it from there, or they can just sign up for our email database list, and we'll tell them, and you've done this before, Nick. You don't know, we have 10,000 of these things. So, we could open up on June 1 and sell 3. I know.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
10,000.
I'm pretty sure my wife's going to buy one just to support me.
Probably have. Yeah, you'll probably be at least a few with just the people you know. Right.
Right.
You'll sell 10 or 20 here.
Or we could be sold out in 2 days.
Exactly. It could be 10,000 on opening day.
And that's when we look at each other and go, okay, now what do we do?
Now
but all that said, I think there's a lot of potential here. And so they would just go to championtribes.com. June 1 is the launch day. And they can order it straight from there. They'll get this in 2 or 3 days from Kaz and the upper guys. Then they'll get a link to the digital platform, and the digital platform not only has the sessions of the night, as I mentioned, that it has what we call the dad track. Yeah. And it says, all right, dads, here's the 3 things you got to do for the next session. Yeah. And there's also a son track that tells the boys, okay, guys, here's the one thing you got to do. Read this. But the thing we want to avoid is we don't want the boys to think this is class. Yeah. This is not class. This is not homework. Because we're not just talking to the dads. We're also talking to the boys. And so that's why we have these games at the beginning. It's just kind of random, goofy games. But it creates energy. And we ask, even the test groups have done this. They've taken pictures of, flipping tortillas on the head with a flipper, that kind of stuff. All those games that youth pastors know, all of them. But we want this to be fun for the boys. And so one of the things we've experienced with the test groups and with our sons is they said, hey, when's the next Champions Tribe meeting? We want to go. That's great. So that's a win for us.
That's what you want, because if you're having to drag your son there, it's going to be hard.
In your world and church world as well, when children or students want to go to church, mm-hmm. they drag their parents to church. Yeah. Sometimes, in our experience, the students hear, "Hey, when is Champions again? When are we getting together for Champions?" So that's what we want, and we think that's what's going to happen.
Some of that might too come if the tribe that you end up with, they know each other and the dads know each other. So you don't need that probably, but that probably does help if you can get the other dads that your sons are friends, and so there's already a little bit of community.
If your son's in a band or your son plays, lacrosse or whatever, those are naturally formed tribes anyway. And you could just say, hey, you guys want to do this for us or with us? We're going to do this. It's going to be this rite of passage thing. It's my experience. I don't think I've had one single time, and I've talked to a lot of dads about this. Not one time have I had a dad go, that's the worst idea I've ever. They've all leaned in and they've said, in fact, our test groups, that way how we found them. I said, hey, we're doing this thing, rite of passage, 12 to 13-year-old boys. You would give a blessing to your son. And to a person, they've said, I've been thinking about this. I just didn't know what to do. Yeah. So that's why we think this could be a help for them.
Well, I think it will. It's a great idea. I love how you packaged the whole thing and made it so easy. Well, that's great. That's awesome. We're going to shift gears a little bit and just talk about some other church stuff and some great things you've done here. So for anybody that's not familiar, when you kind of launched Gwinnett Church, how old is the church now?
We've been in this site for 2.5 years. So we launched in the fall of 2011. So 6 years. Or almost 6 years.
Yeah. Going by fast.
I know.
And when you launched it, you had this great idea that has now in many ways spread all over the place. I was telling you that there are 2 churches in our area that are using this, 2 new churches, which is great. Mm-hmm. But it's the idea of that you're for Gwinnett, and Gwinnett is your county and all that. So explain what that is for anyone who may, not be familiar with that.
Well, I'm a recovering marketing guy, so that was my career, and so I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is what it is. So, I mean, you can take the boy out of marketing, but you can't take the marketing out of boys.
I think it's really helped here, so I would say it's good. I think it's helped.
So when we launched Gwinnett Church, we just asked the question with our team of 4 people at that time, what do we want to be known for? That's a brand promise. What's our brand promise? Another way to say that is, what do we want to be known for? What would we want customers, if you will, to say about us? And so we just had great conversations about that. And then I don't know who said it, but somebody said, well, I just want us to be known for what we're for. Many churches are known for what they're against. I would just like for us to be known for what we're for. Nobody remembers who said that, so I'll just take credit for it.
Oh, okay. So, of course. Yeah, and they're not here.
Somebody, that's right. Somebody said it. And so we all said, so what are we for? And we just started, that's when it just started. Well, we're for Gwinnett schools. We're for Gwinnett businesses. We're for Gwinnett marriages, and we're for Gwinnett kids, and the reason we're for them is because God's for them. In fact, the most famous Bible verse of them all starts with the word for God so loved. And so that's when we said, that's what we're going to do. And so we just decided to stay on that message. So a pivotal moment for us is when we bought this land and the city said, hey, you can put a sign up there that says Gwinnett Church coming soon. And I said, that's typically what you would do.
Sure.
I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Because what I want to do is I want to create conversations in common ground with people who would, when they would see Gwinnett Church, they would instantly think, church, I don't go there because those people are against me. So we put a sign right out here on the property, and it just said #for Gwinnett. That's it. And it was so fascinating. So we would eavesdrop in on social media and see people were trying to figure it out. They would say, is this a school? My favorite was somebody tweeted out, does anybody know what's going on PIB? This is Peachtree Industrial Boulevard, #for Gwinnett. And we retweeted it and just said, we do, smiley face. That's all, but and they thought it was a school, a residential subdivision, a business moving in. They just couldn't figure it out. And then we gave everybody 4 Gwinnett shirts. Yeah. And we said, we want you to wear this in the grocery store and the schools and the parks. And this place has got fantastic parks. But we said, here's what we want you to do. When you're in the grocery store and people turn around and say, for Gwinnett, hey, there's a sign up there that says for Gwinnett. Is that a school? Is that a business? Here's what we want you to say. No, it's not a school or a business. It's a church. It's a church. Yeah, it's a church. What does for Gwinnett mean? Well, for many people, they're more familiar with what the church is against rather than what the church is for. We really know for what we're for. And that message just stuck. And that's how so many people in the early days were inviting people. And it just kind of spread. And then before we even meeting, the good thing is we went 9 months without having a Sunday service, which was actually a good thing because it said, okay, what do we do? So we went to the city and said, how can we help? And they said, well, we have an amphitheater back here that nobody knows about. And I've lived here all my life. And I said, you have an amphitheater here?
You're like, I don't know about it.
Where is it? It's a 2,000 seat amphitheater. And he said, could y'all tell people about it? And I said, well, heck, we'll throw a concert. And I said, it's not like a worship night. We'll just do summer
cover songs and stuff like
that. And I said, we'll fill the place up. And they were amazed. And so then we went to another city and basically owned an event that they were doing. And so we just went into the city. It was for Gwinnett all over the place, and started serving and started getting involved in other nonprofits. And I love the fact that we weren't even open as a church yet.
Yeah, you couldn't even invite them if you wanted to. Yeah.
But in essence, we were fully open as a church. Yeah. Because this is what the church should be doing. We shouldn't necessarily have to wait till they come here. Yeah. We think one of the best things we do for the community is to create environments for kids and parents, but it's not just limited to Sunday. So For Gwinnett has become something that we're just so excited about, and it's what it's trying to do, Nick, is create common ground and conversations with people that have assumed that the church is against them.
Yeah, because the common ground is I'm in Gwinnett too. I'm for Gwinnett. I'm for these schools, for my kids. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, we live here. Hey, by the way, we want the schools to be great too. We want the parks to be clean. We want the businesses to thrive. Yeah. And so here's a way from where churches and especially student pastors, here's one of the things, and this isn't necessarily a new idea, but it's something we got to, I think, all get better at. When you look at most social media posts for churches, 99.99% of them are about the church. Yes. Come on Sunday, we're doing this, we got this event, sign up for this retreat. And hey, all that's great. But I think we could start talking more about what's happening in the community to add value to, hey, you need to go to this event. Yeah. Hey, you should support this business. Yeah. And so one of the things that we've tried to do in our social media accounts is, again, the hero of this isn't the church. The hero is the community. All right, so we want to highlight the community. And many times, if we're not careful, it's like, look how great our church is.
We're here to save you.
Right. and obviously, Jesus is the hero, so nobody email me. Okay, I got that right.
No angry emails.
Jesus is the
hero.
He
understands.
But in this sense, the community is the hero. We're here as a guide. And so one of the questions that I often ask church leaders is this: if your church went out of business, would the community even notice? Mm-hmm. And so if we were to send out a tweet today that says, hey, it's been a good run, but I think Gwinnett Church is closing its doors. I think we feel pretty good that we would have a lot of community leaders rise up and go, no. What do we need to do to keep you guys in business? So I think that's a win for us to think, how are we adding value for the community?
It's being used all over, like I mentioned, and you're aware of that. It's been that way ever since you kind of started it. Churches are latching onto this idea, adopting the 4 language. I mentioned there are 2 near us. And so, and you're totally okay with that. People call you as if like, you've, I don't know, trademarked it or whatever. Like, hey, can
maybe
I do
I
that?
should have.
Maybe you should have.
No.
Like, can I do that? But I know that's exciting for you because you
no, we want to help, and we try to help as many churches as we can. But, and in fact, the whole Orange Conference theme is for our neighbor. And so Reggie Joyner and I were talking, and so this fall we're going to launch something for churches that say, hey, here's like a one-stop shop. Here's because it's more than just T-shirts and a sign out, somewhere.
Image or logo.
It's bigger than that. There's a strategy, and so what we're going to do is just. We've done sermon series, so here's the sermon outlines. You can preach them. Here's the card magnet graphics that you can do because we have a whole strategy on card magnets. Here's how you do the T-shirts. Here's how you do an event in the fall. We did an event in the fall called S'more Gwinnett, which we just did all s'mores, and it was fantastic. So here's all the things, all the graphics, all of it, sermon outlines, the whole thing, all the ideas. So you don't have to go anywhere and look online. It's right here. So I think that'll actually help churches do this to understand the strategy and communicate it more. Yeah,
because it needs to be a lot more than just brand.
It is. I mean, it's just like at Chick-fil-A when I was there and Eat More Chicken. It's more than just there was something called the Moo Manifesto. Believe it or not.
That's a great name.
We actually paid people to sit in a room and think, what would a cow think? Okay, so it's like, I don't know, you got a college degree.
Sign up for that job.
Right,
Yeah.
But, and this sounds silly, but here's the Moo Manifesto said, the cows are not employed by Chick-fil-A. The cows are these renegade spokespeople that have found this company that actually doesn't sell hamburgers. Yeah. And so you think that's the dumbest thing ever, but it really helped change the trajectory of that campaign. That the cows aren't necessarily, they're not paid employees of Chick-fil-A. They're these renegades that they've just found with Chick-fil-A. And that, I could show you the details of all that, but it just plays out very, very specifically. So those kind of details and strategies behind a campaign like that are really, really important. So that's why I'm excited about launching this at the Orange Tour in the fall, is that we're going to be able to share with you not only just the practices and the practical things like, hey, go do this, but here's the strategy and here's the reason why. And for pastors and youth pastors too, it's helpful for them to understand that as they explain this to elders, other coworkers, volunteers. There's got to be a common language. Yeah. And so I think that I'm excited about that.
What do you think about this? Because I think in terms of you wanted to make a difference in the community here before you even started, and you were able to do that. And our church is a part of, we were a church plant 11 years ago, and we've been able to be a part of, it'll be 14 churches this fall around the Baltimore, D.C. area. But one thing I know with a church plant is, most of them they want to be for their city, for their county, but they can't help 10 people or the whole, or 10 organizations, I guess you should say. Because I think a lot of churches I'm seeing now, they're trying to narrow the focus. So is that something you would recommend, that if you want to help your city or your county, start with like a school? Don't try to help 7 organizations. And then the larger you get, obviously the more you can add to it.
Absolutely.
Because it seems like a lot, they try to do a lot of things, and it is helpful. But I wonder if there's more power in helping one. Let's just start here, one school.
Well, it's the biblical principle, don't despise the days of humble beginnings. So we've adopted one school. There's tons of schools. Yeah. We've adopted one particular elementary school, and it's not actually close to here. I mean, it's about 15, 20 miles from here. But, I mean, there's so many other schools. But we adopted this particular school because 90% of the students that go here are on a free lunch program. Yeah. So if for whatever reason, they don't get to go to school or whatever, they miss a lunch. So we've given them money and food to just say, hey, we're for this particular school. Now, there's a whole lot more elementary schools, but this particular one, we felt like, hey, you know what? We want to help this elementary school. Then the high school, there's a high school right across the street. We have helped them in some specific ways. So, but start really small and focus. Yeah. And build from there. Don't feel like you got to do, you could be for your particular city. Yep.
It's like champion tribes. You want to have something for mothers and daughters, but start here.
Yeah, got to start there. Yeah.
And then let it grow. So you did something because you ran out of space here as your 4 Gwinnett families. You ran out of space for families here, and you did like #NextGenWin. Right. So it'd be great to hear like what went into that and the power of it. And obviously most of the people listening are not senior leaders, they're children's pastors, youth pastors, things like that. But what did that look like, and how's it going?
Well, it's going great. You see the construction. So here we go. So
phase 2, right?
We should be in. We may be in by the end of this year, so that would be good. But basically, you see the trailers out here as well, which are very ugly, and I've made complete fun of. And I've told our guys, hey, I'm not being critical of you, but I've got to make fun of the trailers so that we can tell people our students deserve better than this. Okay, but we completely just ran out of space, and we had students sitting all over the place, and so. But in church world, and I understand this, and I don't think this happens as much anymore, but. The most of the dollars go to the adults, and then whatever's going down in the youth ministry, whatever those crazy kids are doing, we'll give them a few dollars, okay? Yeah. And I'm grateful for Andy Stanley and Reggie Joyner and guys like that have never thought that way. It's like, and of course Andy was a youth pastor for 10 years at his dad's church, and so, hey, we're going to fund the next generation. And so one of the things we wanted to be clear about here at Gwinnett is. We had two options. We could build a bigger auditorium for adults because we're out of adult space as well. Yeah. Yeah, I figured it was kind of all over. Yeah. Or we could build for students. And I said, we're going to help the next gen win. We're going to let the students go first. Okay. So we're going to let you sit in overflow and not let the kids sit in overflow because we think it's a better environment for the kids to be able to be actually in a group and not on a floor or in a trailer when it's 100 degrees outside. We think it's better for you to sit in overflow than for them. So we're going to help the next gen win, and we're going to do this. And I want the story of our church to be we are launching the next gen into this world, and they are going to be world changers. And we've shared that not only with the church, we've shared that with the students. And so we've try to do some specific things consistently. One of the things we do before the school year begins is we have a night of worship and prayer for teachers and faculty and students. And it's some of the most amazing nights we've ever had. And seeing teachers stand up and students pray for teachers and teachers pray for students and parents, it's just been phenomenal. But we want our students to know we believe in you. And it's not this generation gap of what's going on down there. And I tell our adults we're trying to keep you preoccupied on Sunday so we can go change the world in Womble Upstreet Transit and Inside Out. And so that's what this is. So this is a $4.5 million project, and so hopefully we'll be in by the end of the year. And I think it's going to be great. So we'll be able to seat 1,000 students in this new facility and have plenty of small group space for them. And so I'm really excited about
1,000 students. I mean, what size would the church? Obviously, you're building for growth, but if the church did have 1,000 students or even 800 students, that would be pretty large. So you're right. I guess you'd have to have a lot of services to fit all the adults in. That's pretty cool that you're prioritizing that.
So that's, and we're about to enter into a season of chaos in the sense that where our current space will not be able to be used for several Sundays in the fall for middle school students.
Yeah, I just came in there.
Yeah, so I don't know what we're going to do, honestly. So if anybody has any ideas, let
me know. Where's that amphitheater? Get that amphitheater.
So we're going to send hundreds of middle school students up to our, I guess, adult space where we don't have any seats there either. So we'll figure all that out. But it'll, once you get past those few months and you get in the building, everybody forgets about all that. So, I've obviously had kids. My daughter's she's only got 4 more inside out environments and then she'll graduate.
Oh, wow.
So she's loved it. But the other thing, and Reggie talks about this as well, and you talk about this, is engaging the next generation in service. So both my kids actually serve. Yeah. In fact, my father-in-law was asking my son Cole recently, hey, how's Gwinnett Church going? He said, that's going great, Granddaddy. Mom's in guest services. Jesse, she serves in Upstreet. I serve in Womble, and Dad, he does nothing.
He doesn't serve anywhere. He's such a slacker.
He just gets up and talks for a few minutes. So,
easy.
I stopped contributing to his college fund after that.
Of course, yeah, sure.
But they love it, and it's just, and you see these students, and they love it, and they serve, and it's just phenomenal. And so, I just told our church, I'm just not content with letting these kids sit on the floor and sit in trailers. They deserve better than that. So we're not going to give the money to you right now. We're going to give the money to them. So anyway.
That's great. I don't know. I think that's going to communicate to them too. Like, who does it? Even if you don't have kids, why wouldn't you want to put kids first?
I'm telling you, we've got empty nesters that are like, oh gosh, we're totally in on this. Yeah. Where do we sign up? I have not had one person go, I'm leaving the church because you're raising money for the next generation. If they did, I would say good riddance.
Let me hold the door. Yeah, here you go. Thanks.
You're going to hate this church from here on out anyway, so let's just go ahead and break up. We'll see you in heaven.
That's right. So there are a number of things, Jeff, I've learned from you over the years. One of them is this great question: what have I done today to cast vision? Mm-hmm. So that's a great question. We can all ask that. What does that look like practically? How do you try to use it?
Mm-hmm. Well, we gave everybody a sticker here at Gwinnett, and it's on their laptop. In fact, I could show it to you. I don't have my laptop with me, but it says, "What did I do today for Gwinnett?" And it could be a tweet, it could be an email, it could be a note of encouragement, it could be, a note of encouragement to a staff person. But what did you do today? I got this question actually from David Salyers, my partner with Champion Tribes. We would go to a Chick-fil-A restaurant, and he would say, hey, we would try to help build their business. And he said, what did you do today to build your business? And sometimes the operator would say, well, last month I put this ad in the paper, and then next month I'm doing a catering order at this big deal. And David would go, hey, that's awesome. That's cool. Love that. That wasn't the question.
Yeah.
What did you do today? Today being the key word. Yeah. And if the operator said, well, I haven't really done anything, David would say, well, can you repeat back to me? I did nothing to build my business today. And he goes, I just want that to bother you. Now, can't do anything about today unless you can figure out something between now and closing.
Real quick.
But tomorrow, I want you to answer that question. And so it was just the power of today. John Maxwell says that we over-exaggerate yesterday and we overestimate tomorrow and we underestimate today. And so it's that thing. So I just want it to bother us. So every time somebody opens up their laptop here at Gwinnett Church, they see that sticker. It says, what did I do today for Gwinnett? And we just think those little pushes over time are really, really important. And so we really feel like one of the things we do for our staff meetings is we have everybody go to Instagram and we search #4Gwinnett and we spend a few minutes liking all the photos.
Which is great, yeah.
And then commenting. But then we'll say, if you see somebody that says, hey, I'm going over here for this thing, or we've got a funeral or whatever, I want you to reach out to them and do something really, really personal for them. So we try to, or just comment. The other thing with student ministry that we found as well about what did I do today is we've had several people who've come to our student environment because our team followed them on Instagram. They came, they signed their Instagram, whatever, or Snapchat. And then next thing I know, they know Reed Moore's following them. Yeah. And then when Reed is asking many of them, why did you keep coming? Well, y'all followed me on Instagram.
And it was like meant something.
It was like the most obvious, like, well, of course, you follow me on Instagram. Why are you even asking me that? So those little things that I think prompt those. What did I do today for Gwinnett? So what did I do today for my business? What did I do today for my church or my community? It's just a powerful question.
It is. And I think for ministry leaders, it's a good way to make sure you're not just working in it, but you're working on it. Kind of like the Chick-fil-A operator thing where like you can spend all your time just working in it.
Absolutely.
And, just getting ready for Sunday or plugging holes or whatever and totally miss the vision part, which is the most important.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great question. Well, Jeff, I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here. I love this Champion Tribes. I'm so excited that you're launching it. I hope people listening will go to championtribes.com and check it out, talk about it in their churches. I think most people are like me in that we want more resources to give to parents, and especially done for you kind of resources that'll help them, that they can do on their own, especially that one of the challenges in church world is we always try to program everything. It's great when we can give them things that we don't have to program it. Here you go. Do that on your own.
Absolutely. Do it on your own. Yeah. And what I'm excited about, you have a 4-year-old, right?
Yep.
So you got 8 years. All right. So you got 8 years.
I want to buy one, but I can't buy it now. What's the point? I'm excited. I want to buy it now.
Imagine how much better this is going to be in 8 years. So I'm excited about that for you. But again, we just had such a great experience, David and I. And the great thing for David and me is we're like, hey, this is an idea that we said you should try it. We haven't done it. This is an idea that we tried and we loved it, and we just want to provide this for other dads. So awesome. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I'm a big fan, and thanks for what you're doing. It's really important work.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thanks for what you're doing.
Well, I'm really excited about Champion Tribes. I just think we could do so much to help dads connect with their sons, and this is a great thing that they're doing. And I know I'm excited about it as a father of a son. He's 4 years old, but just like I said in the interview, I'm ready to do it now. I don't want him at all to be 13, but I really do look forward to something like this when he does turn 13 years old. And I'm also excited as somebody who works at a church. I want to help the dads in our church connect with their sons in a big way. So here's some steps you can take coming out of this interview. Obviously, check out championtribes.com. Pilot this maybe with a group. Any dads who are listening who are your sons around this age, you could try it out. But if not,
I would say pilot this with a group of guys, a group of dads at your church, and see how it goes. And then I know what I want to do is think about making it part of what we encourage parents to do, what we encourage dads to do, when their sons turn 13 years old. And if they release the same kind of a thing for moms and daughters, then again, it's something I'd want to promote to the parents in our church too, because I just think it's so critical. So check those things out. I'd love to hear how it goes. If you try this in your family or try this at your church, I'd love to hear how it goes. Let me know. In the next episode of the podcast, we have the Q&A that I talked about. So if you have any questions that you haven't submitted, but you'd love to hear thoughts on, go ahead and email me or send it on Twitter or something like that, and we'll talk about that. And then after that, we'll kind of kick off a new year of the podcast with Kenny and Al Campbell talking about how they're serving youth workers and a bunch of great interviews that are recorded and ready to go that I know you're going to love. So be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Family Ministry Podcast.
Thanks for listening to the Nick Blevins Family Ministry Podcast. We hope this helps you maximize your church's potential. We would love to hear stories of how you apply what you've learned. You can do that by leaving a comment on iTunes or in the show notes at nickblevins.com.